the Avalanche announcer, like the broadcast team.
Yeah.
Minnesota hasn't had a player like this maybe ever. And I think that's fair.
So sorry, Paul Fenton, the GM who shall not be named, might have made the right calls with a few Wild players currently lighting the lamp as the Minnesota Wild have become one of the most offensively dominant teams in the Honda West. And the Pioneer Press's Dane Mizutani joins us to break down more of this red-hot team. All of that in episode 62.
Bardown Beauties jerseys are back, as are a number of other amazing designs found exclusively at sodastick.com. Newly released 1980 scoreboard t-shirts and restocked North Star State logos. Toss down that Bardown Beauties code at checkout for free shipping on all items at sodastick.com. Hello, everybody. Bardown Beauties back, coming at you. Special shout out to Kowalski's for their support on all podcasts on Talk North Network. Alexis, what's going on, Minnesota Wild? Wow, we have guest Dane Mizutani of the Pioneer Press to join us to really do a deep dive into what's going on with this team. But did you know they could score goals like that? I mean, 20 goals in their past 4 games, a 4-game win streak as we're recording this on Friday, heading into a back-to-back against LA.
Watch them get blown out in both of those games.
It's going to happen. It's 100% going to happen. I mean, LA is a hot team. So really, if anybody watched Alexis's preview today, then you're there for the chaos and calm.
I predicted 2 wins. We're talking about how great they are on the podcast. And this always happens to us. They're going to probably get blown out. Something crazy is going to happen come Monday by the time you guys hear this.
No matter what happens this weekend, you can't negate the fact that the Minnesota have found some offensive touch. I mean, something that I haven't seen since the 2016-17 season, maybe 17-18 season. Nice.
Yeah, it feels so weird watching the Minnesota Wild and knowing that it's the Minnesota Wild. Like you could put like Maple Leafs jerseys on them. I'd be like, that makes sense. But like seeing them in like Wild jerseys, I'm like, wait a second, this team is fast. They're doing things off the rush. They're like, their top line is like superstars. I mean, they're playing so well right now. Like it just feels so weird watching them and knowing that they're the Minnesota Wild. And no shade to them. It's just they're not known to be that kind of team. They're a very defensive
team. You go back
team
to
historically.
The original days of Jacques Lemaire, and it's a defense first team. That's why some players like a Brent Burns weren't going to ever work in the system because he's too offensively driven when you're such a defensive stay-at-home team. And Dean Evson has said, screw that, threw that script out and was like, hey, let's go. I mean, he saw Victor Rask and said, hey, you're a number 1 center. And rip it up.
Deep breaths. Wow. Victor Rask, number 1 center. And not only like, that's not the title just thrown on him. Like he's doing well. He's performing like a number 1 center. Like it's crazy. And the other thing that's so awesome is like, and my dad and I have talked about this a ton, but like, and we've talked about it on the podcast, but like, you don't normally tune into like NHL shows or NHL Twitter or NHL anything and see them like touting the Wild as like this offensive team and like, look at this and look at what they're doing. And it's like the last week and a half or so has been all look at what the Wild are doing. And it's all positive stuff. It's Kirill Kaprizov is amazing. And look at their speed and look at their goals. And I'm like, I feel like I'm in like the Twilight Zone or something. Like it's just so weird, but in the best way possible. And I'm so excited and I hope it continues. Obviously teams are going to have ups and downs in a season, but man, if this is the Wild that we get, we're going to be in for a ride for the rest of the season here.
And it's good that they found their scoring touch now because the schedule only gets harder. I know I kept mentioning that in my previews and my breakdowns that we're doing on Bardown Beauties, but it's true. They haven't even seen Vegas yet. They're about done with LA, who again has found their own winning streak. But the California teams, they've pretty much gone through. So you're left with your Colorados, your St. Louis, your Vegas, the teams that are supposed to be the gimmies in this conference. So it's a good thing that they're finding some of that offensive surge. Because even if you're not putting up 5 goals a night or 6 goals a night, knowing that they can put up more than 2 is really comforting. Like that's my little comfort blanket. Like, oh good, I don't have to cover 2-1 games anymore as often.
And also
as
just
I've been.
Like I said, the way they're playing off the rush, like the Wild are not a team off the rush. They are a very like they don't move that way. They don't normally have the speed to move that way, and they normally can't make plays like that and be a dangerous team like that. So to your point, even if they're not going to score 5-6 goals every night. Hate to break it to you, hockey fans. We all wish we could see that.
They aren't the Toronto Maple Leafs. I
they're
promise.
Not. Yeah, like you might see it from time to time, and we're on a little bit of a streak here, but you're not going to get that every night. But you still need to find ways to be dangerous and to challenge your opponent night in and night out, because sometimes just looking like a dangerous team, even if you're only going to score maybe 2-3 goals in that game, if you look like you're going to score on every single play, you might be able to get your opponent to kind of back down a little bit. So this is a very awesome thing that the Wild are doing, and they're going to need to find ways to do this night in and night out. And they're taking everybody by surprise. I mean, even us who we love to see this, we're kind of like, whoa, like what's going on? I mean, this is a very good thing. And like Jesse said, they are going to need this come those matchups against teams who are going to be much harder wins and much harder outs than some of the teams and matchups that they've seen so far.
Absolutely. I mean, and we talked a lot about that top line. You're hearing a lot about the top line of Victor Rask, Kirill Kaprizov, and Matt Zuccarello, and they are doing absolutely amazing. But you're getting production from all four lines. You're seeing Marcus Foligno really step up. Ryan Hartman, Nico Sturm, not just his first goal. Zach Parise finally kind of tosses that monkey off of his back and finds the back of the net. And special teams are starting to click a little bit, right? They're still not quite there, but they're not getting, struck out every single at bat here. So there are a lot of good things. Obviously, goaltending too, Alexis. Now, what do we do? Alex Stalock today, again, we're recording this on Friday. First time he took shots with the taxi squad. Still no timeline for his return. Dean Evison was still very clear on not sure what to do. But Capo and Cam play so well. Capo especially, right? Cam is getting his first start in this first game against the LA Kings in the back-to-back series since February 2nd. But how do you insert an Alex Stalock into this situation now? And do you start insert an Alex Stalock into this situation?
Oh, I have been thinking about this all morning, because just knowing that Cam is coming back and just seeing the way that Capo Kakinen has played, it really is a tough thing for a coaching staff to have to decide. And I am a firm believer when it comes to pretty much anything, but especially with netminders, play the hot hand. Do not break something. Do not try to fix something if it's working, if it's going well, which is what we've seen out of Capo Kakinen. I mean, there was some matchups in this little win streak the Wild have put together where Capo had to make some big saves, and he looked really good. And so it's not like the Wild were just scoring a bunch of goals and blowing every team out of the water. They needed Kakinen to make some big saves for them and to keep them in games at certain points in time. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of last year when Dubnyk had to be out for personal reasons for a bit of time. And Al played so well that when Doobie came back, they kind of ended up just splitting time rather than Doobie just getting his starting role back. And not because they didn't think Doobie was capable of it or good enough to do it or whatever. Al had just earned that position to say, hey, you've done your job. You stepped in when we needed you to. You got us some wins. We're not going to throw you right back into that backup role. We're going to split time. So it feels like a similar situation like that. But now you've got 3 goalies in the mix of it instead of just 2. And we all know what Al can do, right? It's different than having Cam come in and he's a new guy on this team. And, how is he going to fit in? It's different than Kakinen coming in and he's gotten minimal playing time in the past. And now he's in a bigger role. So we know what Al Stalock can do, but the question is, do you mix up what's been working, And to that, I don't know what the answer to that question is. I am very curious to see how Talbot plays in this Friday night matchup against the Kings. I think your decision is going to lie very heavily in how he plays in his first game back here.
Right. And mind you, Alex Stalock hasn't played since the bubble. So there's a long road for him to come back and get ready and jump in that. And of course, we know Alex Stalock, his character is going to jump into whatever role that they need him to play. And again, this year, teams are allowed to carry 3 goalies because of all of the ups and downs and the tight games and turnarounds and whatnot. But I agree. I mean, we said this at the beginning of the year, and I wanted to see so much of Capo this year because I wanted Bill Garen and his cohorts to know what they had in goaltending. Everybody heard about how great Kakinen was in Iowa. He was the AHL goaltender of the year, for crying out loud. And was that going to translate into the NHL? You don't know unless you see him. And while it is due to unfortunate circumstances with Alex Stalock being hurt, Cam Talbot being hurt, he's gotten the chance to prove himself. He's taken that window of opportunity and pushed it wide open and kept it open for himself. And I think that just gives Garen more comfort heading into the off season, which will be here before we know it. Right. I mean, do they need to go after a goaltender right now? Maybe not. And if Cam Talbot can come back and resurge his career again a little bit and get back to his game, because again, it's been a long time since he's played because they've been riding the hot hand with Capo Kakinen. So it'll be interested to see interested to see how Stalock ends up fitting in there. Unfortunately, I don't know that there's a spot necessarily for Alex to stay here anymore, as much as we love him, our South St. Paul Packer boy. But we'll talk more a little bit about goaltending, about Kirill Kaprizov, about Dean Evason, about a potential apology to Paul Fenton for Victor Rask and Kevin
only
Fiala.
If we have time for that.
Only if Dane Mizutani of the Pioneer Press wants to do so. But he'll be joining us to do even more deep dive of wild conversation. In other NHL hockey news, Hockey Day Minnesota went off without a hitch on Saturday at the Roseville Oval. I love the Oval. Have you ever been to the Oval?
I think one time a while ago. It's been a while.
I used to go. There's like a during the summer, it's a rollerblading like rink outside. And so I used to go there all the time as a kid, but I'm a big fan. There's just kind of an old school Roseville Oval feel. Matt Dumba had his inaugural Without Limits camp with the Hendrickson Foundation youth players and a couple other different groups, about 120 youth kids of diversity getting out on the ice, courtesy of Matt Dumba. Here's what he had to say about that camp.
I think it's just an awesome opportunity for kids who wouldn't necessarily get this opportunity to come to a hockey camp like this, to, make some memories, make some new friendships. And I really like that, it's outdoors and kind of gives you that grassroots feeling. I know that's where I first fell in love with the game. So hopefully these kids get a little bit of that.
That again, Matt Dumba talking about his inaugural Without Limits camp that went off this past Saturday with Minnesota hockey and a bunch of kids out there. You love to see Dumba really taking those initiatives further. I mean, we saw it this past summer. We saw it in the bubble, how serious he really is about change and about diversity and the Hockey Diversity Alliance. So this is just one more step to make that presence here in Minnesota. Minnesota hockey's obviously been stepping up as well. We had Jeff Baydu. Go be sure to check out our podcast episode with him. He was also a big part of this Without Limits camp this weekend, but it's just kudos to him, right, Alexis?
Yeah, there's no such thing as creating too many opportunities for people, and especially in a situation like this, especially with kids. I mean, Matt Dumba to these kids is a superstar. He's a superstar to us, right? I mean, we love covering him. We love watching him. He's an amazing human being. And so to see someone like that give an opportunity to people is awesome, because you just know the kids love that and are all over that. And I think it's awesome too, because Matt Dumba's a younger guy. Sometimes with young guys, it's harder to figure out, what stamp do I want to put on this world and the hockey world, and what do I want to do, and how do I use my money and my platform to my advantage. And Matt Dumba time and time again has shown that he finds ways to do that, and he really cares about the Minnesota hockey community and the hockey community in general. And it's really awesome. And I know that down the road, he's just going to do more and more things. So lucky those kids got a chance to do that. And hopefully some new people fell in love with the sport of hockey this weekend.
Exactly. More hockey players out in Minnesota. We love to see that. Again, shout out to FSN as well for another kind of weird, wonky, awesome Hockey Day Minnesota, our favorite holiday. Certainly a lot of elements had to change. Mankato will get their day in the Hockey Day Minnesota spotlight next year, but this year they worked with what they could, and still a good time to watch, still a good time to hang out and check out hockey all day long.
Yeah, you got to pivot. Last year has been all about pivoting, and you got to change on the fly. They found a way to make it work. Was it 10 hours, I think, of programming of hockey stuff. So, it's fun because even leading up to it, seeing people on social media still being excited, it feels a little different, but seeing people excited for Hockey Day is one of the best parts of Hockey Day, is just the excitement around it. And so glad that they still found a way to make it work, because it definitely would not have been the same with no Hockey Day Minnesota in 2021.
No, we don't need that. We don't need that energy. We don't need
take that away.
Yeah, exactly. So that's going to do it for our first segment. When we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Dane Mizutani. Stay tuned.
We want you to help us design the next line of Bardown Beauties Teespring merchandise. What pod-related bit should we toss on some gear? Stay tuned to our social channels, and in the meantime, continue to shop current lines at Teespring under Bardown Beauties.
We're back. Joining us now, your favorite Minnesota Wild scribe for the Pioneer Press, Dane Mizutani. Dane, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Doing well. How you guys doing?
We're good. Probably better than you. You said that you were at the DMV today, which never goes well. Was that the highlight of your day?
I took, I had probably a 15-minute appointment. It took 2.5 hours.
Classic.
Yelled at the poor lady behind the. I didn't have the right mail, which is my fault. But of course, I said it was her fault. And
right.
She called me back up like an hour later, and I just apologized. I said, sorry. It's been a long morning.
No, that was very nice.
So
Yeah. Long morning skate. You're covering the Wild again this season, another unprecedented season that we are embarking on. But let's dive right into it, Dane. They have been scoring goals, in case you hadn't noticed lately. That's a little different. Is this kind of the real deal? Are we seeing glimpses of the really good future to come of the Minnesota Wild and now becoming an offensively dominant team?
Or is it what everybody's worried about, a flash in the pan? Spill the tea. Spill the tea.
I think it's a flash in the pan with this team, but I think there's like there's signs of how it could be like sustainable in the future, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think this team's going to go out and score 6 goals a game for the rest of the season. But
no, not against Vegas or St. Louis? Or, no. Okay.
No, it's a little different. But you can see glimpses of like with obviously Kirill Kaprizov and Kevin Fiala and like just the dynamic people they have at the top of their lineup that they haven't had in quite some time. I mean, you look at that play the other night from Kirill, not even a play.
Which one?
45-second shift 4-on-4 where he has the puck on his stick for like 45 seconds.
Those edges. What the hell?
I think, the Avalanche announcer, like the broadcast team, said, Minnesota hasn't had a player like this maybe ever. And I think that's fair. Like, I know Marian Gaborik was a star, but like the things you can see Kirill Kaprizov do, 15 games into his career,
right?
Like that's why I think it could be translatable down the road. As far as the offensive goals.
The one thing I want to bring up about Kirill Kaprizov, and sorry fans if you're going to hate me for this, I do have a knock on his game. He's not shooting the puck, and I hate that sentiment more than anything. We saw him have this amazing goal scoring ability and this knack to pick his spot and score. And it's almost like he's trying too hard to be unselfish and trying too hard to get his teammates in the play, which of course is great. You want that. And he makes really beautiful passes too. And he sets up his teammates appropriately, like your Victor Rask, like your Matt Zuccarello's. But I mean, would you agree? What do you think's holding him back exactly? I know we haven't really had a chance to speak with him in quite some time, so we can't ask him in particular, but do you have any sense of what might be holding him back from going ahead and getting more highlight reel goals for the squad?
I think you're absolutely right. Like when you say he just passes too much, and that's not always a bad thing. Like you want a guy who gets their teammates involved, but he has to realize he has one of the best shots on the team, besides Kevin Fiala. And if we're talking slap shots, Matt Dumba, maybe the best shot on the team. So use it. Like that's, you have to somehow get that through his head, shoot the puck. It's okay. Like, I know you want to be a good teammate. I know you want to endear yourself to the team and the fan base, but the best way to do that is by scoring goals. So I think Dean Evison mentioned it the other night when we asked him about the shift, and he said, it was a cool shift, but
the shift. I love that it's being dubbed the shift. That's amazing.
He circled the net 5 times, or the offensive zone 5 times. Dean said, I'd rather him shoot 5 times. So maybe it's, I saw you tweet about it the other day, Jesse, but maybe it's because there's no fans in the building and telling him to shoot that he's,
could be.
That he's not shooting.
That's got to be it. See, fans, you're missed.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, even on that 3-on-1 against the Avalanche, where Matt Zuccarello scored from that really weird side of the net, when they were coming in on 3-on-1, I turned to my boyfriend. I said, I swear to God, Kirill Kaprizov is going to pass this puck. And as soon as he did, I was like, oh, I swear to God, Rask is going to pass this puck. And he passed it. And as I literally had put my head in my hands once Matt Zuccarello got the puck on his stick, that I missed the goal. And my boyfriend is cheering. And I'm like, wait, they scored? I was like, they just passed 2 times on a 3-on-1.
If Matt Zuccarello's down in the corner, I wasn't scoring from that angle.
He's out for the count. Yeah. So I don't know. I agree 100%. I want to ask you, Dane, back to our first question, kind of talking about how you think that there's glimpses here on this team now of potential, long-term offensive power. What do you think needs to change then from this team now to get to that point where it's going to be more something we're going to see more consistently? Is it, getting younger, bringing up some more of those prospects? Is it, growth? What needs to change that you're not seeing now in order for that to happen?
I hate to say it because they're playing really well right now. It's personnel. Like they need better players, particularly in the middle of the ice. That's no knock to like guys like Joel Eriksson, who's been awesome this year, and guys like Victor Rask, even who's been, he's exceeded everyone's expectations, and that's safe to say. And Nick Bonino, Nick Bukestad, whoever you want to like, those guys are good, but they're not number 1 centers. And you have guys like Kirill Kaprizov and Kevin Fiala. Like, I don't know if we're going to see their consistent scoring until they do have someone playing next to them that can be considered a number one center. And I know that's really hard to come by. And like, that's something Bill Guerin's been searching for and looking for ever since he took over. You would have loved to see maybe Marco Rossi's cup of coffee in the NHL, see what it looked like. Prayers out to him. Hopefully his health is fine. And, we could see that down the road. But I think when the team stagnates offensively, it's because, there's no one to get these talented, skilled wingers the puck. And like I said, that's not a knock on the guys. You're just asking certain guys to play a position that's, I think, a little bit above their head.
Well, I mean, when you can put in a Ryan Hartman at center and move him too, I mean, that's a prime example of you're not sure what to do up the middle. And especially you had mentioned with Kirill, who keeps up with that? There are often times that you see Kaprizov ready to go and he doesn't have his line mates to follow. And again, he's on a completely different level for sure. You had mentioned Victor Rask, and Alexis and I had talked about this a little bit. Do we owe Paul Fenton an apology at all for like a Rask or a Zuccarello or Kevin Fiala? I mean, is there any bit of maybe being like, shit, he was a little right? I mean, there was nobody doubted that he could, analyze some players, right? He was just not maybe fit for the position. What are your thoughts on that? I agree. I think the Victor Rask we're seeing now, it's great. It's wonderful. I don't know that that's the forever Victor Rask. He's not going to transcend and be this amazing NHL all-star, but
who would have thought Victor Rask was the number one center that we needed?
Right. Do you think Paul Fenton was like, this is what I was talking about, you guys?
I think, okay.
Let it rip,
right.
Dane. Let's go.
He was right about Kevin Fiala, hands down. Everyone, we do owe him, everyone in Minnesota should write him a handwritten apology, send it down to Florida that he was completely right. This dude is a game changer. Now, it's splitting hairs saying should the Wild have gotten more at the time. Kyle Gramman was a really good proven player. Kevin Fiala was a player with a lot of upside, and you just did a 1-for-1 swap. Like normally, I think you look at trades throughout the course of hockey history, and if a proven player is traded for a not proven player, you get more.
That's not a 1-for-1.
Right, exactly. So, but that's splitting hairs because you look at it now, every single team in the league would rather have Kevin Fiala than Kyle Gramman. So yes, he was right about that. The other two, I don't know. Matt Zuccarello, he has been incredible this year. I think maybe it was because the injury was nagging him and the arm surgery has helped him this year. Maybe he's just hot right now. I'd put it this way. I don't think he's going to score at a 2-point per game pace the rest of the season.
Right.
So maybe he was right about the skill set he can bring, but you gave him a lot of money. You gave him a no move, which really is going to handcuff you next summer when it comes to the expansion draft, unless he, wink, wink, waves his no move. And then Victor Rask, I don't know. I can't hate on him right now. He was not very good the last 2 years.
Yeah.
But this season he's been everything the Wild have needed him to be, and then more. So apologize for Fiala. We don't have to apologize for the other guys.
I think that's fair. I mean, I almost want to apologize to Victor. I feel like every time we spoke with him early on this year, we're like, how much do you need to prove yourself? And you suck and you need to be better. And I know he's probably kind of like, shut your mouth, you guys. I mean, the obvious answer and the obvious question then is, how much is this on Dean Evason, right? Maybe he's finding the right guys, giving them the right time, putting the right lines together. And we love Bruce. We love to see Bruce. And I was part of the people that questioned, is Dean ready for this type of position? But do you think, it truly is him and changing the culture in that team and being able to put these guys in the right positions for them to succeed?
Yeah, I think there's probably something to be said about that. I mean, you just look at the past couple of games and what he's done with the power play. And that's, I think, a perfect example of Dean Evason will play the guys that deserve to play. And the power play was awful. Sucked for the first month and a half or month of the season.
That's a nice way to put it.
Yeah. So Dean said, I'm going to roll my lines. And, there is no power play right now because no one deserves to be on the power play. So he's doing that and it's starting to work. And I think guys who maybe don't get that opportunity on a power play, realizing that it really is about skill and not name, or it is about how you're playing at the time and not how you played in the past. I think all of that goes a long way. I think the players really buy into, all the cliche bullshit that if I have to hear one more time, it doesn't matter who you're playing next to, as long as you're playing next to a Minnesota Wild player.
You're all wearing Minnesota Wild jerseys. You can play with anybody.
I'm gonna scream, but there's something to be. I mean, it works. You know, it's cliches, but cliches are cliches because most of the time they're rooted in truth. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's working for Dean, and I think I was in the boat with you, Jesse, as like, is he ready for this? And clearly, I think he is. So.
Another thing that Jesse and I talked a bit about earlier on in the podcast, we'd love your opinion on, is goaltending. The Wild, that was at the top of the to-do list and at the end of last season, and kind of when the pause hit of like, we need to fix goaltending. They've got, Cam Talbot came in, and they've got Kaapo Kähkönen who came up, and we've seen Kähkönen get a lot of the playing time recently because Talbot was out. Now Talbot's coming back. Al practices for the first time today. What do? You've got Kähkönen who's on fire. Talbot, I would say, has played well, good enough at least in the starts that he's gotten. And we know what Al Stalock can do, even though we haven't seen him play this season. So if you're the coaching staff, what are you doing with this trio of goaltenders that are staring you in the face, looking for who's going to get the start in these games?
Yeah, who would have thought the Wild had two? Right? Like,
yeah,
that's something we would have thought we would have been saying a month ago. I think you have to roll with Talbot and Kähkönen right now. Like, I know Al, obviously I don't think Al's ready. Like, he just skated for the first time with the taxi squad today. He's going to need, I think, at least a month to like get back with him. And maybe that looks like an Iowa rehab stint and just playing games down there. But even when he's ready, I don't know if you can slide him. I don't think you can. Like, regardless of
who do you take out then?
I don't think you can take anyone out. I think he has to be maybe your taxi squad goalie. Maybe you move Hammond down and you say, Al, thank you for everything you've done for us. But Talbot's making $3.5 million a year. We're not taking him out. And Kaapo is showing everything that we want in a backup, maybe a future starter. Like, I think the fact that Kaapo Kähkönen got the start against the Colorado Avalanche just shows how much confidence Dean Evason has in him. And I know it would have been tough for Cam Talbot to go into that game against that high-powered attack. Very, very rusty, I'm sure. Makes more sense to wait, especially with the way Kaapo was playing. But you can't take him out of the rotation right now. And if anything, you have to give him more starts, in my opinion. Like, maybe it's a 50-50 split the rest of the way, or at least until Kaapo Kähkönen shows he can't do it. But I don't know if he's going to show that, because all he's done is shown that he can do it. And he is, an NHL goaltender. And, Cam was good before he went down, but maybe the Wild rushed into signing someone. Maybe this guy was ready all along. So, I mean, we'll see what happens with Al. We'll see when he's ready. But he, it's going to take something happening above him, with Kaapo to get him in the lineup. I don't think Al can work his way back into the lineup right now with the way those two are playing.
I would agree. And I think Talbot too, that's Bill's guy. Bill right away, he was very clear saying he's our number one goalie. That's why we signed him. And so that was Bill's vision. And now with Kaapo playing so well, obviously that vision changes a little bit. But Cam is perfectly capable as well. And I think you had said it too. Alex has been out he has not played a game since the bubble back in August. So it's going to be some time before that decision really probably even needs to be made or had that discussion had. I mean, there's no timeline on return. I mean, is there a possibility, do you think, that Alex Stalock is no longer a part of the Minnesota Wild organization? I mean, do you think that that's ever in a discussion at all, or is that too premature?
I think that's probably a little early. I guess it'll probably be hinged on like him, what he wants to do. Like, I don't know what the plan is with him moving forward, but I would just assume you're not taking those two guys, Cam and Kaapo, out of the lineup. So is Al okay being the taxi squad goalie so he can stay close to home with his family, so he doesn't have to relocate, pretty late in his career? I know he's not old, but he's been around the block, and
he's my age, Dane. So you think he's not old? We're exact same age. He is young and
so
vibrant.
Not old. That's what I said.
He probably does laughing emojis.
So do I. That was jarring to find out.
Quick side note, Dane had informed me just the last home game, which was a month ago now, that laughing emojis, what is it, Dane? If you use them in text, you are officially old?
You're old. Yeah. I didn't know that. I go on TikTok like at least an hour every night before bed, and I'm scrolling into my For You page and like found out that if you use laughing emojis, like that's like not what Gen Z uses anymore. They don't use like you're old, and that's like the first time in my life I feel like I'm pretty hip. Like I'm rocking NBA,
Yeah.
hoodie
Big
right now.
sweatshirt. Yep.
Like, but I'm not hip, I guess. I don't know.
Wow, that's tough.
Alexis, is that true? You're probably
I
our
use
youngest.
laughing emojis all the time.
Perfect.
So you're old
So
too?
I guess I am. Jeez. Wow. 25. Who'd have thought that I'd be old at 25? That's
Over
tough.
the hill. I did a middle part for you Gen Zers.
There you
I was
go.
going to say, yeah, they're on the whole middle part thing too. Yeah.
I'm
Throwing
okay
away,
with
you gotta throw away your skinny jeans now.
Yeah,
I will never
I'm
do
fine
that.
with that. Oh,
No.
I'm fine with throwing away skinny jeans. Those are terrible.
Won't do that.
Dane, I
we
want
should go back to hockey now, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Let's a little sidebar there. Question I want to ask. We've talked about this a bit in little bits and segments here on Bardown Beauties. Would love your opinion. Going back to the whole center debate, it is a debate as old as time here with the Minnesota Wild, and especially recently. Jack Eichel is a huge topic of discussion of, do you want him on the team? If you do, what do you give up for him? So I would love your opinion on Jack Eichel specifically, but just in general, what would you be willing to give up for a number one center for the Minnesota Wild, even if it's not Jack Eichel?
What can you give up,
Yeah.
right? Like
literally anything that's not named Kirill Kaprizov. And like, this is going to sound like maybe a little ludicrous. Like if it's for the right center, I would give up Kevin Fiala too. Like,
wow. That
just-
does sound ludicrous. Yes.
like, look, I think Kevin's a great player. I think he has potential to be one of the best goal scorers in the league. But like, I think the fact that Bill Guerin's wanted a center for so long, and it's not like he's been here 10 years, but ever since he got here,
it feels like that sometimes.
he's wanted the center and he hasn't been able to get it. Like trades are trades because,
yeah.
It's not just one guy fleecing the other guy. Like Bill's going to have to give up something big to get something big in return. And that's why Matt Dumba's name was floated too. But no, I would give up pretty much anything to get a legitimate bona fide number one center on the team. Now, is that Jack Eichel? I don't know, but I think obviously he has a lot of skill, and man, that would excite me if I was a Wild. I know, like he has some, I don't know if it's baggage or whatever you want to call it. Like it doesn't look like he wants to play in Buffalo right now. But a lot of times when guys don't want to play somewhere, sometimes they just don't. So
Stefan Diggs.
Pierre-Luc Dubois. Yeah.
But I think you can look at, and that's a Buffalo connection if you want to talk Diggsy. Like,
yeah, true.
Diggs was like, is he really that good? And then he showed when he wanted to be on the team, and he felt appreciated that he was one of the best, if not the best receiver in the league. Maybe that's Jack Eichel. Maybe if Bill Garen takes a huge swing, brings Eichel here, and he goes back to being, the number 2 pick everyone thought he could be, or down the road will be. I don't know. But I think whether it's him or another guy, you have to really, really look yourself in the mirror and say, like, are we willing to give up something big? And I think everyone should be available except Kirill.
And I think Bill has made that very clear, right? I mean, he's told us almost every single time we talk to him, because we ask him every single time, like, everyone's expendable. I think he's been gracious enough by giving every guy a fair shake and a fair look. When he came in, it wasn't a complete clean house. It was, let's see and evaluate every player. And again, he's handcuffed to quite a few of these players right now. I mean, there are still some guys under longer term contracts, but I think he's willing to make moves. However, I don't know that we've seen the big splashes yet necessarily from him, right? Because you have Eric Stahl, sure, he moved him, but it's Eric Stahl. I mean, do you think that he is gearing up and ready to make a big move like that, like a Matt Dumba or even a Jonas Brodin, who is one of the most consistent defensemen and very underrated defensemen for them as well? I mean, do you think that Bill is ready to make a big move for the right player?
He almost did with Zach Parise during the trade deadline. That was probably the closest that we came to seeing something like that. But yeah, that's a good point, Jesse. What do you think, Dane?
I think he's ready to do it. I think like every time you talk to him, he says like, if it makes the team better, if I think it's going to make the team better, I'm going to do it. So to me, that says like, I'm ready to do it. Like, I don't think he's just blowing smoke. And I think when we ask him about certain names that come up and certain reports that are out, and he's always very upfront. Like, yeah, that guy's name has come up. Yes, Matt Dumba has been talked about. Yeah, I've talked to Matt about being talked about. Like he's very upfront about the conversations he's had. Now, he doesn't give us intel on the conversations he's having, but the fact that he is so willing to talk about people being available leads me to believe that, like, yes, he's ready to do something big if if it's within reason, if it's presented. Now you look at Pierre-Luc Dubois, like the Wild were in on that, but they just didn't have enough. Like he went for Patrick Laine, who scored one of the best goal scorers in the league. You can say what you want about how he kind of wore himself out in Winnipeg, but a guy like that is what it took to get Pierre-Luc Dubois. So it's going to take, a guy like that to get something to Minnesota of that caliber.
Well, exactly. Number one centers are hard to come by. Every team there's so many teams that also need them. The Minnesota Wild, yes, desperately, but there are plenty of other squads out there looking for the same exact thing, and they're not a dime a dozen. They are very, very hard. So, that's going to be the consistent uphill battle for Bill Garen and the Minnesota Wild. How much do you think Bill has really helped change the culture in this team? I feel like you had just mentioned, Dane, every time we speak with him, he is so upfront, and he's it's not brash by any means, but it's honest. And I do have a good feeling that we can trust most of what he says. And it seems like he's not afraid to, he won't sugarcoat everything like maybe some GMs do. Do you think that's a big reason maybe there has been a little bit of a cultural shift in addition to just bringing in some new guys as well? They probably, players look at Bill Garen and say, we respect you and respect the decisions you're making. Do you think that's a big part of it?
Yeah, I think from the jump, he had credibility, just having played in the league, having won in the league at the highest level, reached the pinnacle in the league. I think that brings a lot of credibility to the team when you can look the guys in the eye and say, I've been where you've been, and like actually say that, like I've sat in the spot you sat in.
Like literally, I've been here, you guys.
I've done it. Don't mess with me. I've done it. But yeah, I think he's brought a lot of accountability to this team. And if we want to talk about the culture, like, yes, he's definitely changed it because he's given the team a complete facelift. Like the team isn't rebuilding. It's like trying to retool on the fly, but it looks nothing like it did when he got here. So, and the thing that kind of comes to my mind when I think of Bill Garen is like when he traded Jason Zucker and we asked him, like, are you worried that like guys might sag because, a guy like Zuck was so liked in the locker room? And I remember standing in the interview room at Tria, and he said, no, I'm not worried about that. If they sag, then I don't want them on the team. Like, I'll trade them too. So, I think he's brought that type of accountability and credibility to the position. And I think the players, they understand like this is a business. And I think something like shopping Matt Dumba or like listening to like calls for Matt Dumba this offseason, and then going and having a conversation with him about it. So Matt's not reading, stuff on Twitter, seeing through the grapevine. Oh, I'm on the block. Like Bill's telling him these things. I think that goes a long way too. Like being really upfront about, the things you're talking about, the things you're doing, and being willing to have those conversations with players, even if the conversations are hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The last question that I have for you, Dane, is, as we're sitting here at this point in the season, Wild are right there in it as far as playoff positioning goes and sticking with the best of them. And again, we're recording this on a Friday. They're on a win streak. They're looking great. Who knows what the next two games before this gets released look like. But how are you feeling about the team as far as playoff hopes go? Have you wavered at all from your preseason predictions on this team?
Yeah, because I think I hopped on your guys' on Beauties happy hour, and I said, "There's no way this team." Yeah, I think
there's a way.
They're right there at the end, and they're really just, in my opinion, they're just battling with Arizona. Sure. I know LA's hot, but I feel like they're gonna fall off. I feel like that's more of a flash in the pan than like you asked at the beginning, like, are the Wild a flash in the pan? Like the Kings, I think they are for sure. Yeah. So I don't think there's enough talent on that team right now. But yeah, there's definitely an avenue where this team can make the playoffs. And, I don't know if they're going to make a big run in the playoffs. But just simply getting there at this point would show progress, especially because this team looks different than it did the last time they made the playoffs. So, or, obviously last year, but I'm talking. That was a qualifying series. Didn't even
don't
felt
count
like if the season doesn't get paused, like don't make the playoffs, and they didn't show like they really deserved to be in the playoffs last year with that performance against Vancouver. So, like, I think it would go a long way to just get there and then see if you could go on a run. But yeah, like this last stretch, regardless of if they can keep scoring 6 goals a game, like, they can defend, and they can defend in front of their goaltenders. And if their goaltenders can make the timely saves, like, this team can definitely be there at the end of the season.
Have there
Love
been
that.
any, I mean, the kind of almost nice thing about having this new condensed season and the smaller teams is you get to see more of your opposition more often, which is probably great for the Wild and their coaching staff, but it's also gives us media members a chance to look at. Have there been any teams in the Honda West that have surprised you, like LA, or, they're maybe not the real deal right now, but is there anybody that's kind of come out? Like for me, it's Anaheim. I really thought they could be better than they are, just because John Gibson alone to me is one of the best, but they're surprising me. Who is your team outside the Minnesota Wild that have been kind of maybe the biggest surprise that you've seen?
Probably Colorado for like the opposite reason. I thought they were going to dominate this division.
Yeah,
and
a lot of people did.
They still might. Like it's early, and I think they're still trying to get healthy and figure things out after their COVID or their mini COVID outbreak. I mean, they can't say anything because the Wild had 15 guys on.
Sorry about that, Colorado.
They're on a 4-game winning streak, but
Yeah,
that surprised me that they're not just like taking
rolling through everybody
every single night. Every single time the Wild play the Avs, I think, oh man, the Wild they haven't. The Wild have hung tough, except for that one game when Koppel let up 5. But yeah, that's been surprising to me. I thought Nathan McKinnon was gonna, be a front runner for the Hart Trophy again, and I thought they were just gonna dominate teams and kind of obliterate everything in their path, and that hasn't been it. That kind of speaks to the parity of the league, but it's been interesting to watch, and I think maybe in 3 months down the road, it'll be interesting to watch how good this team is come April, May, because we got to see them when they were still figuring this stuff out. So
yeah, I would agree. And then final question, Kirill Kaprizov, Calder. Is that what he's going to do?
100%. You just just send it to him. Come on. Like, yeah. And like, can we get the dollar bill Kirill to stick? Because like nobody will call him that. Like,
I support that. I will tweet. I always tweet the little dollar bill tongue emoji, which because I'm old, that's what I'm always tweeting out because I like it. I think Dumba was onto something. That's more fun.
Yeah.
Dollar bill Kirill for Calder. Yeah.
For sure.
Let's get the hashtag going, get the t-shirts going. Dane, thank you so much for joining us. We'll definitely have you back on to talk more in-depth Wild hockey analysis. You're our favorite beat writer. Be sure to subscribe to the Pioneer Press, you guys, right, Dane?
Yeah, we need it. So
keep Dane employed.
Keep coming on. Subscribe to the Pioneer Press.
Yes, exactly. Where else can people find you, Dane?
Online, pioneerpress.com, and my Twitter, just my name, Dane Mizutani. So.
Perfect.
Awesome.
We're gonna take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, this is producer Fred. I just want to ask everyone to go out there and spread the word about Bardown Beauties. Leave us a like, share, thumbs up, review, you name it, we want to hear from you. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and of course, your favorite podcast app.
We're back. Thanks again to Dane. I just love catching up with him, and that's so fun to take these dives because he's kind of off the cuff too, just like us, right? Like he can kind of come at it from different angles. So it's always fun to catch up with him and have his thoughts, peek behind his brain and see what he's thinking is going on the team.
Well, and he was on the podcast pretty early on for those of you who are newer listeners, but I wasn't there for that episode. The reason you guys brought him on was because I was gone. I was in Boston for NWHL All-Star Weekend. So
his
I was happy to have him on.
Shambles. It was
we should have asked him if
I thought about it. I didn't want to drudge up any bad memories for him. So I thought I'd leave his love life out of it. Dane, if you want to add us about what's going on with your love life, let us know.
We'll fill in our listeners.
This week's up for debate, another popular one. You guys love your sweaters. I love the passion that you all have for sweaters. Like we try to mix in like players and goals and scoring, and you're like, no, Buttes, we want sweater debates.
Let's talk
only.
hockey jerseys. Okay.
Best retro jerseys. Alexis, how did you select? There's plenty of teams. Yes, the Hartford Whalers are amazing. You guys know I got the mask. I love it. How did you select? I think it's probably because you kept with the Honda West teams, correct?
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah,
so I had to go with Wild because I'm like, well, most of our listeners are, Minnesota Wild fans or Minnesotans. And so I knew that one would get a lot of feedback. And then after that, I just picked two that I personally really liked, which was the Arizona Coyotes and the Colorado Avalanche. But this was of all the ones that's been hard to narrow down to 3 choices, this has got to be one of the toughest ones because there's just so many good ones. I mean, I almost did the LA Kings. I almost did the Hartford ones.
Kings,
I love the Capitals jerseys, the Calgary Flames, Vegas. I mean, there's so many that are just really creative and really slick. And so that's what I put. And I even saw some people commenting. A lot of people said Hartford. There was somebody mentioned the LA Kings. And obviously
it's Carolina. Don't you call them Hartford? It's
Carolina. The Hartford jerseys. Yeah, so a lot of people were loving the Wild ones as we kind of expected. It was tough to even choose after I had narrowed it down. Jesse, what was your favorite?
Arizona. I love the Kachinya throwback logo there.
Yeah.
I think that's so solid. I mean, I'm a big fan of the Nordique Slove. I thought that was very simple, very beautiful. You saw that on gorgeous display on Lake Tahoe, which, my God,
that's kind of what sold me on them. Yeah.
Yes, I thought those looked phenomenal. And I mean, I like the Wild jerseys. I've said, like, they're super strong. I love them with the breezers, because I think the breezers complete that whole look. It just, I don't know. They're not my top. But I would say Arizona for sure. I love how old school that is. You want retro, that's retro. And it's part of still their heritage. You know, it's tough because Minnesota and Colorado and Carolina have all pulled upon from their other teams, which isn't wrong, but at least Arizona got to stay true to Arizona, Phoenix, I guess, when they were referred to as the Phoenix Coyotes. But I went Arizona. What about you?
So I kind of copped out. I did a cop out and kind of said all of them were great. See, the thing is
we don't allow that, Alexis.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm a cheater. I love the Arizona, the Coyotes ones. The thing that I have the reverse effect. They have the reverse effect on me that the Wild ones did. So the Wild ones, I didn't like when they first released them just in pictures. Like I was like, okay, they're average, middle of the road for me. But then when I saw them in gameplay, I was like, those are so slick. Like they looked way cooler on TV than they did in pictures. So I kind of changed my mind on those. The Coyotes ones, I had the reverse effect. I loved they looked so slick in the pictures, and I loved the purple. But then on TV, the purple doesn't come through as well. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's different, in person or whatever. But when I saw them on TV for the first time, I was like, I don't like these as much as I liked them in pictures. I went with the Colorado Avalanche ones, and for your reason for the Wild was my reason for Colorado. The breezers, the maroon breezers are so cool. Plus the Nordiques logo is slick, and it just like I love the white against the maroon breezers, and like you said, they looked so good in Lake Tahoe. Like I couldn't stop thinking about the breezers. I was like, I knew we were gonna do this up for debate, and I was like, I have to pick the Colorado as one of them because the breezers are so cool. But it's tough to choose because so many teams did such a great job. But I had to go with Colorado.
I was in another shout out. I think LA. I hope we see those maybe this weekend when the Wild, I almost called them the Stars. Oh my God. When the Wild bust out their retro jerseys on Saturday, maybe against the Kings, that would be super cool. Cause I think those are beautiful as well. That's going to do it for this week's Bardown Beauties episode. Again, thank you to Dane Mizutani for joining us. Shout out to our friends over at sodastick.com for sponsoring us. Big ups to Talk North for keeping us on their network. Another shout out to Kowalski's for being a part of the Talk North network. And shout out to all of you beautiful people. You guys are awesome. Again, we seriously cannot thank you enough for your continued support in listening, downloads, subscribes, rating. Certainly be sure you do all of that when you can, while you can. And keep checking us out. We've got great content coming at you, some really exciting guests coming up as well. Certainly any feedback, we love to hear that as well. Give it to us anytime. But that'll do it. Thanks again for tuning in. Have a good one.